Welcome, darlings. My name is 42, and today I have 2 creepypastas for you. And of course, I got a few other narrators to help me bring them to life. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you do not miss anything this week. Now, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I was so happy when my teacher said he would email my parents about my amazing progress and attitude to learning. That was, of course, until I got home and remembered I didn't remind him to use my old name. Just Rats by author unknown. Narrated by 242, PA Nightmares, and Phoenix Fire. I want to tell you a story. It's a story of a man. You see, my great-grandma was a really nice old lady. She had a really nice little old lady house. We used to go there a lot before she passed away several years ago, and my grandparents tore it down to build a new house for themselves on top. One thing I distinctly remember was her attic. Boy, was it effing scary. It was dark. Only one light bulb would work, and you had to be really careful because there was a lot of exposed insulation. So if you stepped off the boards to get around, you'd probably fall straight through the ceiling into the room below. But it wasn't so much the atmosphere of the attic, but the fact that it was dark, dusty, and smelled a little weird. It was a story my uncle and dad used to tell me about the attic. A very long time ago, when my grandpa was just a little boy, they moved into this house. It was nice. 2 bedrooms, a nice bathroom, dining room, and kitchen. My great-grandparents made a very decent living. My great-grandfather owned a very successful body shop, and my great-grandmother sold Avon. One day, my grandpa was playing in the living room when there was a knock at the door. He answered it, and there stood a man. He was wearing a nice suit and holding a nice hat against his chest, with a polite smile on his face.
"Hello there, Junior,"
he said.
"Is your father home?"
My great-grandfather approached the door, suspicious.
"If you're selling anything, I'm not interested. Thanks,"
he said before trying to close the door. But no, this stranger interrupted with a start.
No, sir. I'm no salesman. I'd just like to talk if you wouldn't mind."
"About what?"
my great-grandfather asked.
"I was wondering if I could take a look in your attic. You see, I used to live here and it would really bring back some memories."
The man was nervous, but my great-grandfather wasn't about to fall for any con man.
"Sorry, sir. My wife's about to finish dinner. Not interested."
So he shut the door and ushered my young grandfather away. A day passed, and it was another hot summer day. My great-grandmother was fixing my grandpa lunch when she heard a knock. "Wallace, could you get the door?" she called to my great-grandpa, who sighed and obeyed his wife. It was the man again.
"Now you listen here, mister. I already told you. I don't want some stranger in my house. You leave me and my family alone before you upset my son and wife. And if you upset them, I think there's going to be some trouble."
"Please, sir,"
the man pleaded, wearing his hands.
"It'll only take a moment. I absolutely must get up there, if even for 10 minutes.
This time, my grandfather didn't give him the liberty of a goodbye, only a slammed door. A few days passed, peacefully playing, working. The life of your average Canadian upper-middle-class family took place as usual. My great-grandfather, great-grandmother, and grandfather sat eating dinner one evening. I like to imagine they were having grandma's, this is what I like to call her, roasted chicken and potatoes. So delicious. But I digress. Again, a knock on the door, and it sounded important.
I swear, if it's that son of a asking to get in our attic again, I'll be tuning his clock, but good.
My great-grandpa muttered, getting up. Wallace, please, nothing in front of little Jim, my great-grandmother cried. It was the man again. He was not, however, alone. He was with another man who looked similar.
Now, sir, before you chase us away, please understand we're brothers and we absolutely must speak with you,
he said before my great-grandfather could curse him out up and down.
Well, spit it out then, man. Now you've gone and interrupted my supper after a long day's work, and this had better be good.
My great-grandfather threatened.
Tell me, sir, have you ever heard strange noises in your house? Scratching, shuffling, maybe even like moaning from your attic?
The new man asked calmly. My great-grandfather turned stone cold. His son had often whined of scratching and other sounds, to which both his parents attributed to maybe mice.
Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. Why do you ask?
He asked coolly, crossing his arms. The men at the door exchanged worried glances.
If only you'd let us come up to your attic. You could come up if you like, but it would be better if you told your son to go to his room, your wife to the kitchen, and us men to the upstairs.
So my great-grandfather told my grandpa to go play, asked his wife to clear the table, and led the men up into the dank attic. They used it for only storage. There was no real reason to come up here, ever. The two men looked around and knocked on the wood of the walls in the attic in various different spots. Knock, knock. Hollow. Knock, knock. Hollow. Knock, knock. Not hollow. My great-grandfather froze as they nodded at one another before turning to him.
Now, sir, please believe us when we say we'll pay for any damages that need to be fixed, and that what we're about to do may be very shocking, maybe even frightening to you. So you may very well not want to see what's about to happen.
My great-grandfather pondered right then and there about turning his heels and waiting downstairs. But no, he had to be the man and stay for his family's sake.
Go ahead then. What's in there?
He asked. He wished he hadn't. The two men pulled at the boards, peeling away the old wood fairly easily. My great-grandfather felt viscous bile build in his stomach and throat. The smell. Oh God, the smell. His body was frail and gnarled. His skin was ghostly white, and his bare teeth were yellow as freshly boiled sweet corn. His eyes were open, glazed over and staring. The pupils were milky. He was blind. The whites were barely that. Instead, they were bloodshot to the point that was almost unbelievable. His fingernails resembled long brown talons. Horror filled my great-grandfather as the two men bowed their heads.
"It's him,"
said one. The other only sighed and covered his nose with his sleeve. This thing, this remnant of a once living man was dead, but freshly. That was when my great-grandfather had reached his boiling point.
Now, you had better both explain to me, right now, just what in God's name is going on here. Is this some sort of sick joke? I ought to blow the brains out of both of you where you stand.
He bellowed.
Sam, go get the blankets from the car. I'll explain.
One man said as Sam nodded and left.
Sir, please understand, we're no monsters. You see, this is our brother.
He began fretfully, looking at the mangled creature in the wall.
Your brother. You 6 sons of locked your own brother on the wall?
My great-grandfather cried out, placing a hand on his queasy stomach.
Never, sir, never,
said the man.
My father just passed. We never even knew this poor boy existed our whole entire lives. My other brother and I. Now, it would seem our brother here was born with some sort of mental retardation. Something that my mother and father couldn't handle as parents. So, they chose to do the unthinkable rather than face the public with their shame.
He explained, motioning for the shell of a man. Mind you, the story takes place in a time when something like a mental defect was seen as a terrible, embarrassing thing. My great-grandfather held his head and looked at the dead man, then back at the stranger.
Get this thing out of my house. Send someone over to patch up your mess, and then you never, ever come near my family again. You hear me?
He ordered.
You can rely on that, sir. We had not wanted to bother you in the first place, but we couldn't sleep at night knowing some poor family member was stuck with him living up in your walls, you see. He probably was sucking the moisture from the ceiling and eating bugs and mold, I would think. It's amazing he could have survived.
My great-grandfather solemnly said nothing. He only watched as Sam returned and the 2 men bundled their strange, demented, and dead brother, leaving with countless thank yous followed by a repairman and a gorgeous fruit basket a day later. When my great-grandmother asked what happened, my great-grandfather couldn't bear telling her.
Rats,
he said.
Just rats.
Walking to school with my little sister was the highlight of my day, until she got hit by a car. At least she's able to see me now that we are both dead. Somebody has been leaving notes around my house. They're starting to freak me out. By Sylster Spooley. Narrated by 242 Reads, Dark Little Voices, Shade and Decay, and Phoenix Fire. They started innocently enough.
Don't forget your keys.
Read the first message, scrawled on a sticky note in loopy letters. Had been left on my fridge door. It immediately grabbed my attention, because at the time, I lived alone. I had no memory of writing it, and the handwriting didn't match mine or anyone I knew. I was slightly perturbed, but wasn't sure how to react. In the end, I just tossed the note and went to work. The second note came a few days later, left on my kitchen counter. The sticky note was pink this time, but still had the same distinctive loopy handwriting.
Make sure to pack a lunch today.
Again, I was unsettled. Now, any normal person might have reported this to the police, but during that time, I was going through a major depressive spell. I had moved to a new city, away from my friends and family, and had started a new job that I quickly realized I hated, and didn't nearly pay enough. Home was lonely, and work was soul crushing. I had trouble enough getting out of bed each morning, let alone filling a report that I'm sure the police would not have taken seriously. Even more stress, I crumbled up the note. However, I ended up packing a small lunch for myself. Usually I didn't bother to put in the effort and just ate cafeteria food. But against my better judgment, I fulfilled the wish of the note. That day the cafeteria was closed. The main cafeteria fridge had broken overnight, and many of the frozen lunches inside had gone bad. Management thought it'd be better to shut it down for the day. A feeling of unease settled in my stomach after learning the news. It was as if the note had predicted it. The notes continued throughout the following weeks. They would typically show up on random days, no more than 3 notes to a day. They were all left in obvious places in my apartment, all on sticky notes, and in that unfamiliar loopy handwriting. They began to grow more prophetic.
Take I-80 today. There will be a bad accident on your way home. Janet is going to offer some cookies at the office. Politely decline. They will give you food poisoning. Marie has been on a diet. Compliment her on her weight loss. She'll end up thinking well of you.
Of course, I tested the notes to see if they were accurate. Every time I ignored their advice, whatever it warned against came true. One day a note said to pack an umbrella, and I on purpose didn't. It was forecast to be sunny that day, so any normal person wouldn't think to pack one. But sure enough, I got soaked that evening walking to my car. I was incredibly curious about the notes. There were so many questions I had about them, and those unanswered questions kept festering in my head. I tried writing notes back in return and leaving them out, but never got a response. I'd speak out loud and ask questions as if, or in case, the note writer could somehow hear me. But this only made me feel foolish. I'd occasionally make a surprise visit home at odd hours just to see if I could catch the note writer leaving their notes. Of course, I never caught them. I tried installing cameras in my apartment, even making sure all the cameras were completely hidden. But the next day I found every single one of the camera's insides completely torn out and placed on the kitchen table with a single note next to them reading,
Never do that again.
The note stopped coming after that, which made me deeply regretful. I had grown accustomed to the notes. I had begun to rely on them even. They had significantly improved my way of life over the last few months, both mentally, financially, and socially. I had actually started making friends at the office thanks to their advice, and for the first time in my life, I was even a bit popular. My managers, who before the notes didn't pay much interest in me, now valued my presence and would ask my opinion on projects. It was no secret, I was on my way to a promotion. Could I still do that without the notes? I also valued the notes as a friend, as weird as that sounds. Or more like a guardian angel. Wherever they were from, they were always protecting me. Without them, the future was suddenly unknown, dangerous. Every time some mild annoyance popped up from that point, from bad traffic to stressful work situations, and even a minor paper cut, I thought about how this all probably could have been avoided if I still had the notes. The next week, a bright green sticky note appeared on my bathroom mirror.
Don't forget to call Mom today. It's her birthday.
I nearly cried. I decided to sack my investigation and just accept things as they were. Slowly the fog of my depressive spell began to lift, and I could feel myself returning to how I used to be. My confidence rose, and for the first time in a while, I felt in equilibrium with my life. I went out, cracked jokes, and even managed to clean up my apartment. I also managed to get a girlfriend somehow. Her name was Amanda. I met her at a pub when I was out with my buddies. The best part of all of this was, for some reason, she seemed to actually be into me. She was gorgeous, way out of my league, really, with long ombre hair that reached down to her back, with soft brown eyes. Her laugh was lovely, and the lemon-scented perfume she liked to wear was intoxicating. She was the type of girl you could chat with for hours and never run out of things to talk about. The relationship was still new, so I was trying not to plan our whole future together in my head. But she was so lovely, it was hard not to. At some point, I briefly thought about telling her about the notes. I've always wanted to tell someone about it, but never really had anyone to tell up until now. I decided not to, however, afraid she might think I'm crazy. There was no point so early in a relationship making her think I was loony. Plus, I was afraid the notes might stop again. If whoever was leaving them clearly didn't want me looking into them, how would they react if I shared what was happening with somebody? So at that moment, I kept it to myself. Amanda had a hobby of cooking and had invited me to her house on Saturday for, in her words,
the best fucking spaghetti you'll ever eat.
I was pumped since this was the first time I'd actually visit her house. I was in a good mood that evening, as I was getting ready for the date. I hummed to myself, happily thinking about how lovely it was going to be, and went downstairs to grab my keys. On the kitchen counter was a new hot pink sticky note. I picked it up instinctively.
Kill your girlfriend.
My brain stopped for a moment. I read it once, twice, a third time. The words flashing in my brain but hitting an error every time. I sat the note down and gulped, feeling nauseous. Anxiously, I went to my car and started driving. I tried not to think about the note, but the words kept circling my mind.
Kill your girlfriend.
The note had never failed me before, and they were always in my best interest as far as I knew, which was admittedly not much. Maybe they were wrong this time. Maybe it wasn't meant to take literally. Kill could be a synonym for break up, right? My mind kept trying to make up poor excuses the whole way there. By the time I arrived, I was a sweaty mess and not a lick calmer. I pulled down my sun visor to check my face, and a bright green sticky note fluttered out. I went cold. The note had never appeared outside my house before. Hands shaking, I picked up the note and read it.
Kill Amanda. Take the gun from your glove box and shoot her.
I looked at my glove box wide-eyed. I did indeed keep a handgun in my glove box for safety purposes. I wanted to puke, to believe this wasn't happening. Again, I ignored the note and walked up to Amanda's house, trying to shake the message from my mind. She answered the door almost immediately after I rang the doorbell.
Hey, what's up?
She said with a bright smile, but when she saw my face, her smile dropped.
You okay, Gary? What's wrong?
She said with concern.
Nothing.
I lied, trying to force a smile.
Well, actually, I think I have a bit of a stomachache.
Come in.
She said, ushering me in. The inside of her house was cute and homely. She fretted over me, worried, as she led me over to her kitchen table. She then took my hand and rubbed it, trying to comfort me.
If you're not feeling up to spaghetti, we can always have it another time. Don't worry about it. Do you want any antacids or something?
I smiled. The way she was so concerned for me over a simple stomachache made me fall in love with her all over again. My heart panged with both love and guilt. The aroma of cooked spaghetti was also extremely strong, and even though she said it was fine, I knew it would probably be a bummer for her to pack away all that spaghetti after just making it.
I'm fine, sweetie. I probably have a stomach ache because I haven't eaten much today. I was looking forward so much for your spaghetti.
Her smile returned again. I always loved how fast she smiled at things.
Well then, Mr. Hungry, let me grab you a bowl.
She left for the kitchen. I reclined back inside, sticking my hands in my pockets. I felt a crinkle of paper. Oh no. I pulled the paper out of my right pocket.
Take your chair and bash her head in.
I had a hard time controlling my breathing as I stuffed my note back into my right pocket. I also felt paper in my left pocket, and against my mind screaming for me not to, I pulled it out, realizing it was actually 2 notes crinkled together. Shakily, I unwrinkled the first note.
Do not eat the spaghetti. Drugged.
What's that, Gary?
Asked Amanda behind me. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I stuffed the notes back into my left pocket.
Oh, just some note from work I forgot was in my pocket is all.
I said in a weird voice. She frowned, looked like she wanted to say something, but then thought better of it.
Here, babe.
She said gently, handing me a bowl of spaghetti. It looked heavenly. I wanted to puke. She sat next to me with her own bowl. She rested her head in my hands and looked at me excitedly, expectantly. I stared at her blankly.
Well, take a bite, silly.
She said, gesturing towards my bowl.
I'm so sorry. I really need to use your bathroom.
I jumped up and started looking for her bathroom. She jumped after me, looking confused.
Gary, what's wrong? You've been acting weird.
When I found the right door, I went in and locked the door behind me. She kept knocking and knocking.
Gary, seriously, what's wrong with you? Is the stomachache that bad? Talk to me, Gary, please.
I backed up against the bathroom wall, then sank down to the floor. I pulled out the 2 notes from my left pocket again, this time reading the second note. My heart sank.
She is not Amanda.
After decades of research, we sent out our greatest explorers to a planet that could sustain life. It didn't take long for the aliens to torture them to death and perform autopsies, leaving us horrified and vowing to never make contact with Earth again. And with that, darlings, we're near the end of this video. As always, I enjoyed these 2 tales. Remember, the scratching in your walls is just some rats. And if someone leaves notes, maybe you should pay attention to what they're trying to tell you. Thank you, Phoenix Fire, PA Nightmares, for helping me with the first story. And of course, thank you, Dark Little Voices, Decay and Shade, for helping me with the second story. Remember, if you enjoyed these stories, hit the like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, well, I've been telling you to subscribe so you don't miss anything this week. And please share these stories with anyone who might enjoy them. And of course, we have Patreon, merch, PayPal, and memberships if you like to help in other ways. And of course, make sure you leave a comment for poor 242 so she can see how well her hard work is panning out. But thank you guys for watching and listening. Sleep tight and don't let me bite.